This video is about how to use support when building your body paragraph to make sure that you're integrating the sources correctly, not over-relying on the sources, and that they actually support what it is that you're trying to say. So let's go ahead and I'm going to pull up a file that is going to show a pretend prompt. Okay, and I tried to pick a topic that was similar to what we're working with, but not the same. So the pretend prompt says, why do people choose to not interfere when they see crimes taking place? So just like in your essays, you want to make sure that the entire essay is focused on answering that question. So in order to get to building a paragraph, first it's helpful just to know what my thesis statement is. So the thesis statement, and again, this is just my pretend tentative thesis that I'm working with, says people do not interfere when they see crimes occurring because they are unaware or afraid. That means that every body paragraph that I have after that must connect back to that specific thesis. So the assumption is, from an audience perspective, is that every paragraph is going to have something to do with being unaware or being afraid. And that should be pretty clear to the audience. It shouldn't be a guessing game. It should directly connect back. So I have written out a topic sentence for a body paragraph that could potentially be in this essay. And the topic sentence just says, some people choose to not act when they witness crimes because they are unaware that others are not already stepping in and taking action. So you notice that I even use the same term, unaware. I didn't say one reason or one excuse or, right? The first one, it's a little bit more complex than that. So try to think that way as well when you're setting up your paragraphs. Try not to make it a big long list, but at the same time, they all need to have that clear connection. You also want to start your body paragraphs with your own idea, your own voice, your own writing. Do not start or end a body paragraph with source material. It's going to cause problems with flow and clarity. Not to mention, it can really distract from your own ideas and your own writing when you do that, and that's the opposite of what you want to achieve. So if you were actually going to build this body paragraph up, and I'm just going to kind of type it when I write or as I'm doing this, so this is not something I have sort of pre-put together for you. I want to kind of you literally to see how I would do it. I have that topic sentence. Again, topic sentence directly connects to the tentative thesis. Thesis directly connects to the prompt. So again, all very clearly connected together. So if I wanted to build on this idea that I started with in my body paragraph, first thing that I would do is I would explain that topic sentence farther. So I would follow that up with people make this assumption because they inherently So I filled that up with a statement. I'm like, okay, I was going to explain this. Why do people sometimes do that? Well, they make that assumption because they inherently believe that others are good citizens and have already intervened in some way. They may believe that others called 911 or gone to seek additional help. So far the paragraph says, some people choose to not act when they witness crimes because they are unaware that others are not already stepping in and taking action. People make this assumption because they inherently believe that others are good citizens and have already intervened in some way. They may believe that others have already called 911 or gone to seek additional help. While this may or may not be the case, a crime could still be in progress and causing harm to those involved. Then I could introduce a source to help support this idea. So I might introduce an article, and I picked an article specifically from the Psychology Today website, since that was a place that you could pick articles from. And I chose article, Why Crowds Make Us Callous. Sam Summers explains. So I introduced this source. Notice that when I introduced the source, I specifically included the title of the article. I put quotation marks around the title because that's how you mark article titles in MLA. I also included the author's full name. And then I include a verb to illustrate, show exactly what it is that I think that author is doing in this quoted information, okay? And then I followed it with the quote, and the quote starts here and goes all the way through. The reason it has these three little dots here is because I did not include a few words at the beginning of the quote that were unnecessary. So I just simply took them out and you put dot, dot, dot. It's perfectly okay to do that as long as you do not change the meaning or intention of the quote itself. Now, once it's quoted, I'm not done. I still have to add in parenthetical citation. And for this particular source, as you can tell when I'm trying to talk and write, spelling is not my strong suit. I would use the title of where this article came from. And the title of where the article came from is Psychology Today. Now, because that's the title of the website, I actually put that title in italics, okay? Now, the way that this is set up, where there's this introductory phrase followed by italics, very, very important to make sure, or followed by italics, followed by the parenthetical citation, make sure that all your source material is in fact sandwiched that way. Something to introduce it, parentheses with information at the end to make it clear that you're done with that source. Every sentence containing source material needs to have those pieces to it, whether it's a direct quote like I just did, or it could even be a paraphrase or a summary, which I'll show you in a second as well. So I'm going to continue on and actually follow this up, right? Because maybe I don't just want to do that one quote. Maybe there's another piece of information that I really wanted to emphasize from this, okay? So Summers further details that place is irrelevant. People respond this way in minor and major situations. Now this time, because I did not use the article title in the introductory phrase, because it wasn't the first time that I introduced the title, that is what I followed up with, okay? So when you have the title and author's full name in the intro phrase, which you should have the first time you introduce a brand new source, you followed up with the next piece of information, which is typically, okay, where's the title of where that came from? When you're doing a paraphrase, so this is a paraphrase, it means I put the author's words into my own voice. You follow it up with the next piece of information. I only use the author's last name here, which means the next piece of information would literally be the actual title of the article. The punctuation in these sentences comes after the parenthetical citation, not before, okay? And also, it's really important to make sure that you are looking at the correct order of information when determining what goes where. So when I said, like, if you have this, then this, if you have this, then this, literally what I'm doing is looking at that works cited entry that I provided for you, looking at the example for Psychology Today. Well, I didn't use the bystander effect article, I used this one. So that would be the author's last name, the title, and then the title of the website. So that's that order of information. Now, if this was an actual paragraph, I couldn't just stop here. I need to continue this. One of the things that I'm missing from this actual paragraph is some more specific examples. Now, I mentioned the idea of calling 911 or going to seek help earlier. That is an example, but it's not particularly specific. Now, I just mentioned the idea that Summers came up with, which is that the actual level of crime doesn't really matter. People still make the assumption. So maybe I want to provide some examples of that. For example, so I added this statement. So I added an example and then I added a follow-up. It says, for example, if a group of students is watching a bully pick on a weaker student by shoving him into a locker, then at least part of the onlookers are assuming that someone has already gone to get a teacher or principal. While this is a minor crime, and I probably should add in some definition there of what I mean by minor crime, have equal responses. And then I'm following it up with, okay, now let me give you an example of a larger crime. For instance, So I've added this scenario. So it says, for instance, what if a drunk driver, such as the one in the video, waste of candy, a what-if scenario, social responsibility, goes to drive home from a public location, then the onlookers would assume that someone else is going to step in and take away his keys or call the police. The problem with both of these scenarios is that they are assumptions. No individual knows if action has taken place unless they are the one doing the action themselves. Really important to make the opposite assumption. Okay, so you can see that by the time I'm done, now keep in mind that this is a little bit larger font, right? I'll show you what it looks like in normal size font in a second. That this paragraph is now a well-developed paragraph. I started with a topic sentence. I went through, I offered some examples, I offered support from the article, right? That is my support from the article. I also mentioned and referenced a specific video as an example. And then I gave two different scenarios, one of which I used that video in part, the other which is a scenario that I came up on my own. It's called a hypothetical situation. Then I explained the significance of those videos, of the scenarios, and why it's important to understand that information or what my readers should be doing with it. Okay, so this is one example of how to develop and build that body paragraph. Again, it is also an example of how to include source material for your actual essays yourself. Okay, so and again, just to give you an idea, this is the area that you source material. And you're going to see that in that red font. That is a really small portion of the whole paragraph, right? It is not the majority of my writing, and that is pretty standard and typical of how your whole essay should be. The source material should be a small piece of support that you use to back up what you're saying, to prove or show or illustrate what you are talking about. But always make it clear what you're talking about first. And again, make sure that everything connects back together. This topic sentence must connect to the thesis, which must connect directly to the essay prompt. Hope you find this helpful, and good luck.